Hey everyone, it's Nina from ROADIE Free Radio. In today's clip, Larry talks to Sahir Hanif, production manager and founder/CEO of Masters of Maple Drums and Ghost Tech Touring. When Sai says he's been in the music industry since he was a kid, he really means it. Here he is telling the story of how he founded his own drum company at 14 years old. If you want to hear more from Sai, the full episode is number 134 from May 6, 2019. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. Here is Larry and Sahir Hanif.
You know, when I was 13, my dad was like, all right, I want to get you a nice drum kit. You know, we went to Guitar Center and it was a whole thing. And I remember we went there for a few weeks and like, I got the Pearl catalog.
Hollywood Guitar Center?
No.
Orange County.
El Toro. El
Toro.
Yeah,
okay.
El Toro. And I actually ended up working there when I became of age, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that was like the local spot. You know, me and my dad, you know, and my mom and my poor brothers too would always have to be taking me to the Guitar Center to get sticks and, you know, whatever, because I'd save like a little bit of dough and buy like a pair or two, you know. And so I remember we went there and, you know, my dad was like, cool, let's do some research, figure out what you want. I got all the catalogs and like, you know, looking at all this shit. And I was leaning towards Atomic kit because of the Lars stuff, of course, but I just I settled on a DW kit, you know, like the one, you know, it was like a white marine pearl and it's like a classic color too, which I kind of liked a little bit better. And I remember we took it home and I fucking took it apart, like literally down to the shells. And
wow.
Parents walked in and they were like, what the shit is this? Like, what? Like they thought, you know, a few hours into it, you know, I'd be ripping away. You know, they thought I was going to be playing till 2 a.m. or something like that. You know, the cops would get called. But I was so fascinated with it. And the whole transactional part of it, I'm like, why are these things so expensive? Like, doesn't make any sense. And I took it apart. And for some reason, you know, this was maybe 13 and a half. I was like, I think I could build this. And my parents looked at me like, what are you talking about? That's when they walked in and they saw everything in pieces, like washers, the whole thing, like, and it was all lined up. And I just had to see how they worked. And I remember they kind of looked at each other and it's still like burned into my head. They were like, what the fuck is this dude talking about? Like you can, and my mom was like, you can make these? Like, what do you mean? Like, and my dad, it was so beyond it because he's not like a handy guy. And nobody in my family, aside from my middle brother, would like work. He'd work on like BMX bikes and stuff, but nobody was like a builder kind of person. You know, nobody was like that guy.
Right.
But and my dad was like, you can't just make this shit. You know, it's like you know, a factory and the whole thing, and you know, blah blah blah. But for some reason, when I said that, it connected in my head. I'm like, oh no, fuck, I can make this shit. Like, again, no background woodworking. We didn't even have tools in the house.
Right.
It's like the fucking power drill we stole from the neighbors, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shit like that. So that's what it was. So when I was a few months past, you know, I put the drum kit back together, obviously he was playing it. It was awesome. Super stoked. And then I told my brother, I said, hey, I really want to start building stuff, you know, because I always was like, you know, like playing with Legos, and I still play with Legos till this day. Some people know this. I have a set of Legos in my production case when I go on the road, and I'll have like a 20-minute zone out period where I'll either like build Legos or do some shit. But I build with Legos every day, no joke, because it helps me clear my brain. And like, you know, sometimes you just got to put stuff together.
Right.
But
it's so fascinating because like, obviously for some people it's 20 minutes or 12 fucking hours playing video games.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's your zone out thing. But I like the piece because sort of what I was thinking too was like, you've got the right brain or left brain, whatever the creative side is, right? That zones out the right brain, you know, playing the instrument, getting lost in it.
Sure.
And then there's this other part of you that, you know, is an entrepreneur, is a builder, is a designer, you know, things have to be kind of practical, logistics, things like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the whole thing. I just, you know, and I remember building stuff. I told my brother, I was like, man, I got to like figure this shit out, you know? So, and this is when eBay was like an actual thing. And so my oldest brother was like, you know, helping me find some stuff. So we bought a piccolo snare drum for like $40. And it got to the house, and I remember I got some red spray paint, some black spray paint, and my brother showed me how to sand, and I was like, I remember painting it in the garage with spray paint and figuring out like prepping parts and like, the whole thing, like just figuring out. And this is before YouTube, so it was just like, you actually had to learn some shit and like ask around. And that was that. And man, a few months later, I, turned 14 and I told my parents, I'm starting a drum company.
What?
Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And, my brother, we figured out the name and the whole thing. And I was like, that's it. Like I got to do it. And I drew out the M, like, which we still have today. And I got it tattooed on my hand and shit. And that was it. And I was off to the races in my head, at least. I was like, this is going down.
Wait a minute. So at 14, you started Masters of Maple?
I did. I started Masters of Maple when I was 14. And my parents, actually, my sweet mom, my mom took me to City Hall because unbeknownst to them, they just thought it was a thing. I was starting to hustle. Like I always had the hustle going on. I was always trying to get into something. I had sold my first snare drum, which I had no idea how to build. I had no fucking idea where to get parts from. I was just creeping eBay. So I figured, okay, I could figure it out. And I sold a kid in my 8th grade class. And I remember I sold him, I was like, okay, I can buy the shell and then I could put some different parts on it. And then and I told him, I was like, well, cool. Like, I'll just make it out of this thing. Like, do you like black sparkle? He was like, yeah, dude. And I bought an old, like, I can't even remember the brand, but it was like, the holes were single. So I was like, cool, I could find lugs that could fit that. And then I like sold him the drum. And he was like, his parents gave me a fucking check for $500. And it was to Masters of Maple. It wasn't even to me. So I was
for one fucking drum?
Parents, yeah. And I was like, hey, I sold the drum, and they both looked at me like, what are you talking about? And my parents were like, you got to give them the money back or whatever. And then my dad was like, no, this, you could figure it out. Like, just, figure the shit out, I guess. And I was like, yeah. And so my mom had to take me to City Hall, co-sign the business license to get a DBA. And then she took me to the fucking bank, and I got a bank account. So at 14, I was rolling, baby. I had a company.
Oh my God. Concerned. Hey, what's happening, roadies? It's Larry here. Just wanted to thank you so much for listening to this short clip. I really hope you got something out of it. If you can take 2 seconds to head over to iTunes and drop us a review or a comment, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Keep listening, keep coming back, stay healthy out there, and remember, no roadies, no rock and roll.